Hi everyone, I'm Blight. Tonight's pasta is about the dangers of accepting a ride home after a few drinks. Before we get started, if you enjoyed today's narration, don't be afraid to like and subscribe, or leave a comment down below. It would help the channel, and I would sincerely appreciate it. Now, let's get into tonight's narration. And remember, keep the lights on, folks. 7 p.m. Friday, at the bar. One little drink won't hurt, said Kylie, sealing her fate and condemning herself to the worst night of her life. 10 p.m. Friday, in the car of a stranger. I think you passed my street. She was very sure, in fact, that her street had been passed. She'd been looking for it in between the waves of nausea and had seen the sign. She had some doubt. After all, her vision was swimming in and out, so she wasn't sure she had read it correctly. But then again, she had been rather close to it, her head being pressed to the window the way it was. Hey, sir? Did you hear me? I think you passed my... But then she was interrupted by his large hand smacking her hard across the face. Kylie hadn't noticed in the bar with all those people standing around just how big this guy was. She might not have accepted his offer of a ride if she had noticed. She sat back in her seat in stunned silence, unable to process what was happening. 10:26 p.m. Driving further into nowhere. Where are you taking me? She asked, after marshaling up her courage. She was rewarded with another smack, harder than the first. Before she could think of how to talk her way out of the situation or to escape, her entire world had faded to black, perhaps because of the harsh slap or the drugs she'd been unwittingly fighting off all night. She'd never know. When she woke up again, she'd be unable to remember the ride at all. 1 a.m. Saturday. Waking up chained to a bed. Hello? Kylie called out softly. Her head was spinning, and she didn't know where she was. Even the thought of sitting up made her want to be sick. She knew she wasn't home, but she couldn't think of anywhere else she could possibly be, unless she'd been having a terrible dream about being abducted. But that couldn't be true, could it? The last thing she could clearly recall, she'd been supposed to meet up with a friend at a bar. Everything after that was hazy. Surely, if she wasn't in her own bed, she must be on someone else's bed. A friend, or worst case scenario, she'd gotten a little tipsy and was at the home of a one-night stand. In either case, someone would be around. Hello? She called again, a little louder. Hello? Someone responded this time. There were too many things about that one word for her to process in the state she was in. It was a deep male voice, and it was warm, welcoming. It was also not coming from beside her in the bed, but from the other side of what sounded like a rather large room. Kylie tried to open her eyes, not sure why she hadn't started with that. Then she realized they had been open. Everything was just dark. Who are you? She asked, trying to sound braver than she felt. A friend. 3:30 a.m. Talking to a friend. I wish I could see you. Her friend had taught her a lot. In the couple hours they had known one another, they had bonded. Dire situations have a way of forcing people who might ordinarily have nothing in common to become the best of allies when facing an enemy. At the end of the day, friendships were all about survival, and Kylie's new friend had taught her a lot about surviving in her new prison. He'd been there for her when she had been sick. and when she had first discovered the chain around her ankle, he'd calmed her down and answered her questions to the best of his ability. He told her about their situation. There was one man and one woman. He wasn't sure what their relationship was. He'd thought once that they were brother and sister, what with them looking alike. But he'd also seen them do things to one another that no siblings should be doing. The man hit harder, but the woman kept a person longer, which was crueler in its own way. As Kylie listened to him describe in only the faintest detail the sorts of things he'd seen in his time there, she felt like being sick all over again, and once or twice she had been. She was scared. She'd never been a tough person, and judging from her friend's assessment of the situation, she didn't think that she'd last very long at all. All things considered, she wasn't sure that she'd want to. Dying would be preferable to her. She didn't want to linger during years of torture like her new friend must have, seeing others come and go. He sounded weak, tired, and in great pain. She never wanted that to be her. The one small thing she would have asked was that she could see her new friend's face. With all the discussion, she felt like she knew him, and she'd rather his face be the last one she saw than the face of her captor. Her eyes had adjusted to the dark somewhat, and she was now sitting on the bed facing the direction his voice came from. But even squinting, she could see no more than a vaguely human-like shape in the dark.
"Maybe someday you will,"
he answered sadly.
4 a.m. in the dark.
"How long do we have?"
"It varies, but usually they don't come until morning. 5 a.m., not long before sunrise."
"I have to ask, is there any way out?" Kylie had dreaded asking this question, because she had a feeling she would not like the answer. If there was a way out, surely he'd have taken it. Silence greeted her. "Hello?"
"You could try to fight, but..."
"But what?"
"Let me give you a piece of advice. If you fight, do it now, when they come for you. If not, you'll be waiting a long time. For as weak as you feel now, you're not likely to get any stronger. Not here." 6:30 a.m. Waiting.
In her hand, she held a key. It was the spare key to her friend's apartment, and it hadn't been on her keyring yet. If it had been, it would have been in her purse, wherever that creep had taken it. Luckily, he hadn't checked her pockets before chaining her to the filthy bed. It made for a poor weapon, but it was sharp at the end, and it was better than nothing. She'd taken her friend's advice. The captors had keys on them at all times. If she could bring him down, she'd be free. If she could at least hurt him, he'd probably kill her quickly out of rage, and maybe that was the best she could hope for. She'd make her move now, and go for the eyes. She laid on her side, pretending to be asleep, waiting for the footsteps to get closer. She tensed as she felt his weight on the bed, but then she lunged.
6:17 a.m. Lying in blood.
"Kylie." She was too tired to answer. The voice came back, louder and more persistent.
"Kylie, you need to get up. You need to unchain yourself. It's now or never. You took down the bigger one, but if his woman comes down here before you've moved, you're not going to be strong enough to fight again. Get up, Kylie."
She had won the fight, but only barely. The initial shock and the blood loss from losing the first eye had been enough to weaken him, but that was only a relative term. He'd still been strong enough to beat her bloody, which he had continued to do until his last breath, even as she'd been stabbing away at him with her sad little key.
I'm sorry. I can't.
She had tried to tell him. She wasn't a good fighter. She wasn't strong. She let the blackness take her again.
11 a.m., standing behind her new friend.
Coming to, she'd been relieved. The woman hadn't found her yet. She'd thought there would still be time to unlock the two of them and escape together. He hadn't spoken to her, though, not since the sun had risen. She stood behind the other bed, looking at the shape under it.
I'm going to get you out, okay?
She pulled back the sheet from the form and screamed. She jumped away from the frail body with its discolored, pale flesh, causing the lifeless head to fall to one side. She watched with horror as his eyeball fell out and rolled across the floor. She rushed up the stairs, more eager than ever to be home. It wasn't just that her friend was dead. It was that he had obviously been dead for a long time.